So hello, my name is David Bradley, aka Schizophreniforms, and this is the second episode of the readings from the White Book, or the ideas that I've got together to formulate for the White Book. And this is from, I don't know whether I mentioned this in the previous one, but it's like a second drafting of the White Book. So this is the second version of the White Book, first chapter, or first piece of writing I've done for it, called The Procession of Awarenesses. The Procession of Awarenesses. Imagine you're alone. Perhaps you are. What is the quality of your character, your awareness and your mind when you are completely alone? Next, picture yourself in the company of a close friend or loved one. Are you aware of the inherent difference in your perception that exists between you when you are alone and when you're in the company of that of a loved one? Next, picture yourself surrounded by all your friends and family. Is there a quality to that experience that is fundamentally different from when you are alone? Now, imagine yourself in a huge crowd of people, perhaps like a festival or a gig. Can you sense the perceptual difference in your psyche at this level of interaction? Now, this process could go on further, each time expanding further and further out from the centre of your being, first to the whole country, the hemisphere, the planet, and so on until you accompany or encompass all of time and space. This is your place in the universe and your relationship to the divine. At some level of your cognition, however concealed, is an awareness of the procession and union of yourself in the universe. That awareness begins with an act of submission to the potential of your own existence. There is also a recognition of the interplay between your mind and the mind of each consecutive sphere of awareness. If you try and force your will on the universe around you, it will require a constant rejection of the reality of your existence, and every effort made to force yourself in one direction or the other weakens your stance enormously. To use the cliched metaphor, if you resist the flow of the river, you'll be torn apart, but if you flow with the river's power becomes your own. Similar to resisting a thought, where the effort to resist the thought causes the thought to persist, as you attempt to force your individual will against the infinite force of the universe, the more you are destroyed and inevitably become powerless. To regain your power, there must be a uniting of your will with the will of the universe, which involves a complete submission of your own desires. Rather than trying to escape from desire in the myriad ways people do through meditation and so on, one must acknowledge their own hidden motivations. If you have truly evil intent and impulses, every attempt to rid yourself of them indulges them at some other level of your cognition and psyche. You as a person, or most of us anyway, have an intent as well as an inherent distaste for the current reality. This projection of non-acceptance is the cause of powerlessness. If you deny the will of the universe, you will be annihilated by it in an instant, for who alone can even influence or resist the forces of the universe? And in certain states of resistance, such as agitation or bliss, the power of the universe overwhelms you and the entire cosmos starts to flow into you. And if you try and resist, the cosmos will consume you. But if you accept the power flowing through you, you are transported to a dimension and a state of awareness that exists both within time and outside it. This new state of awareness is interwoven with the previous reality. It feels as though you have a new set of senses, a new form of cognition. The appearance of reality is the same, yet the quality and form of it are entirely different. For example, where previously the nature of yourself and the universe was masked, now it is revealed. And in that moment of recognition, you remember that you have always been there. It is sincerely as though you have a new mind. The narrative of the universe becomes profoundly distinct. New senses, such as an awareness of others' thoughts and intentions, become starkly apparent. The great cacophony of infinite individual minds chattering incessantly to themselves. Patterns begin to emerge in your perception. Patterns of events, patterns of speech. Subtle events become newly united in a greater narrative. You are no longer emotionally entombed in your psyche, but submerged in the symphonic ocean of intent and causality. You may have certain destinies presented to you by the narrative itself. Essentially, it feels as though the universe is alive with communication. You are no longer a mind floating around, but in your act of submission, you become part of the symphony. You are finally awake. The next phase comes in determining a destiny of which you have decided at an unknown level of cognition. The superconscious self, guiding you through the narrative embodied through the universe itself. The very fabric of existence warps to deliver this message to you, as it always has. Only now you have accepted your existence and place in the universe. The message becomes powerfully vivid. You begin to commune with non-physical entities, sensed through the magnetic pull of different choosable destinies. These entities are future outcomes, and also the polarities, the many polarities of the divine. There are many, many gods and demigods, some benevolent and some malevolent, some powerful and some weak. These beings exist hidden behind the closed eyes of humanity, and the willfully ignorant and accidentally ignorant alike. They are working, always working in synthesis with each other in the non-physical realm, negotiating for power and peace alike. You may recollect new realities in your memory as well, as you begin to live in acceptance of all memory, not simply the fractured and displaced experiences of memories from before, but a complete immersion in the totality of your memory. Everything ever experienced, consciously or not, becomes part of your potential awareness. Dreams suddenly come to mind with the same significance as the waking world. So yeah, that's one of the pieces of writing. There'll be a second one of part 2. I may either join them together or in one video, or depending on how long this one's turned out to be in total, or there'll be a separate follow-up video for the second part of this. And I do find this perspective fascinating, and it's honestly my experience. So I find that, especially when I'm sort of psychotic, it's seemingly impossible to ignore the cross-correlation between these sort of half-forgotten dreams and even something as simple as the memory of the dream state. So if you remember your waking life, because if you think about it, most people are living in a state of sort of half dreaming, half asleep, half awake all the time. They're not really immersed in the totality of their entire experience. Like, we can't remember things that we should be able to remember. We don't even remember what we did the day before. You know, we're immersed in this kind of soup of general awareness that kind of shifts and flits erratically. But the more you focus your psyche within that process, the more you start to remember. And then when you enter into this quite extreme state, however you may assign it, the awakened state or the psychotic state, depending on how you interpret it. And in this, because it's the white book, I'm interpreting it as though the information presented is real. You find that, so like the last statement, dreams suddenly have the same significance as the real world. It's like, as in regards being content of the psyche, like the dream state is just as much of a source of useful information as any other part of the psyche, or any other experience that can be had by the psyche, because it's just as real. And we see from things like, like Freudian dream analysis and various other ways in which people have tried to make sense of dreams and dream travel and astral travel, that not only are dreams significant to us personally and individually, but that they can have a grander context in this way when you start to Jungianly synchronize with the reality you're in and start to understand the the grander context for the universe itself. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily a pleasant experience, but that it to me, it feels like a fundamentally true state. That living in a state of immersion within reality, as though withdrawn from what we're supposed to think about it, how we're supposed to interpret it, what we're trained and cognized to, and actually experiencing it as though from the perspective of how we would interpret it without the consciously programmed or unconsciously programmed filters. And the experience is very much that we are immersed in a mimetic and noetic and noospheric kind of soup of intention, and that there is more to the experience of reality than simply being an estranged individual self, kind of just sat in a soup of chaos. That is quite the opposite. That we are intimately linked at every level of cognition and awareness with everything that's happening, and that there is a certain allegorical level in which you can interact with that. There's a certain way in which, when you start reading that healthily, like when you chronicle dreams and you start to understand that things in your dreams are there to teach you about the waking world, when you integrate the awareness of dreams in that fashion into the waking world, you start to see that your dreams become powerful and significant and more in depth and more vivid and more real. And we're simply applying that process, like in the previous writing on tarot, back to this reality, in so much as that if you remove the way you think things should be, the way you've been taught to interpret reality as this meaningless kind of mechanical process, when you that is annihilated. When the programming's annihilated, and you're just living purely in the present moment of your perception, it creates new novel experiences. Now, that's all I'm going to say for now, because I've got more to say in a following video. But if you like this information, if you're intrigued, if you want to know more, please stick around, subscribe to the channel, and then and possibly click the little bell notification if you want to see when I release new things. It should be weekly, one video for the black book, one video for the white book minimum per week. And yeah, please like the video, because it helps promote it and other people get to see it. Please share if you think people find this interesting. And that's been the Procession of Awarenesses. This is a sort of part 1, so I'll be back with part 2 of this piece of writing. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.